Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
A week later, Roxanne picked the largest cemetery plot in West Cemetery for her mother. It was around 80 square meters and appeared very dignified. It was a sunny day when she relocated her mother's grave. A prestigious priest performed a ceremony and lowered 2 urns into the grave. Children of the deceased, please step forth, shouted the priest. Lucian and Roxanne approached the grave before paying their respects. Behind them, Archie, Benny, and Estella appeared mournful. Estella was even crying. Standing beside the children with sorrowful expressions, Elias and Sonia wished their in-laws would rest in peace. "We promise we'll take good care of your daughter." Jonathan and Madeline stood slightly further behind sorrowfully. They were touched after they learned the truth behind the death of Roxanne's mother. Even though they were newlywed and shouldn't have attended the funeral, they still did. Meanwhile, James and Electra had just arrived to the left of Jonathan. Behind the youngsters were their elders, which included Zachary, Henrietta, Lorraine, Jones, and Yennefer. Everyone had a somber expression as they mourned the death of a great mother. The priest continued to chant something until he eventually gestured at the crowd. "Everyone, please pay respect to the deceased." The crowd followed the priest's instructions and completed a series of actions until the ceremony ended. The instant it did, Roxanne couldn't help but sob as her body went limp. Lucian had to hold her tightly. Back then, her mother didn't receive a funeral like that, so she finally held one that day. Everyone approached Roxanne and offered her words of comfort as well as encouragement. She looked at all of them with gratitude. As Lucian gazed at her gently, her children hastily surrounded her. Slowly, Roxanne calmed down. "I bet Mom hopes that I can live happily every day." Hugging her children, she assured them that they had nothing to worry about. Then, she thanked everyone for attending the funeral with her in-laws and her husband. By the time they wrapped everything up and returned to the manor, the sun had descended below the horizon. Just as Roxanne sat down, her children flocked to her quietly and obediently. Sonia brought a bowl of soup from the kitchen and served it to Roxanne. "You should drink some, Roxanne. It'll relieve your exhaustion." After nodding, Roxanne drank the soup. Then she comforted her children and asked them to return to their rooms to do their homework. Upon receiving a call from Caden, Lucian said to Roxanne, "Juliana will likely be sentenced to 8 years in prison and have all her property seized. As for Joseph, he may be imprisoned for 3 months due to illegal activities." Roxanne nodded indifferently. She had moved on from the past after the funeral. "From today onward, I'll continue my journey solely as Lucian's wife and the daughter-in-law of the Farwell family. I'll live life to the fullest and without regrets." As she laid her hand on her abdomen, she began looking forward to Seward's and Noreen's births. In the scorching summer heat of August, the temperature in Horrington had risen to 30 degrees Celsius since the early mornings. The entire city felt as hot as a bun in a steamer if it wasn't for the occasional sea breeze. In the obstetrics and gynecology department of Flora Verba Hospital, Roxanne felt wave after wave of contractions squeezing her abdomen. The sweat dotting her forehead, the deep crease between her brows, and her tightly clenched jaw showed her fight to keep the pain from showing on her face. Lucian held her hand tightly with his right hand. From his wife's iron grip, he could guess the intensity of the pain racking through her. Lines of worry etched on his face. His eyes were filled with distress. Lowering his head, he brushed his lips against Roxanne's forehead, trailed it to the tip of her nose, and finally stopped at the corner of her lips. Darling, hold on. You can do it. Archie, Benny, and Essie are all waiting outside. They're all shouting encouragements at the top of their lungs. Lucian kept cheering her with a gentle tone. Roxanne nodded. A blissful smile stretched across her face. I know. Don't worry. It should be faster this time." Beside her, doctors and nurses stood alert and ready. After all, their director was delivering a baby, so the pressure on their shoulders was heavy. Soon after, the doctor gently urged, I will be pushing her in now, Mr. Farwell. Please wait here." Lucian nodded before slowly releasing Roxanne's hand. He turned around, left the delivery room of the obstetrics and gynecology department, and waited in the hallway. Elias and Sonia were already pacing up and down. Their anxiety was written across their faces. "Daddy, is Mommy in pain?" Estella ran toward her father with tears streaming down her cheeks. Her worry was evident since she had heard her mother cry out from pain earlier. Despite having some basic knowledge about a delivery, Archie and Benny were nervous too. Their gazes were pinned on their father as they waited for his answer. She's fine. Don't worry. We have to trust your mommy since she's the best. You'll get to see your brother and sister before long." Lucian comforted, trying his best to look calm. Elias was suddenly reminded of something and immediately ordered Sonia, "Prepare the seaweed soup now. Roxanne can have some right after delivering the baby." Lucian asked with a frown, "Can she drink it immediately after giving birth?" Of course she can. I even prepared some mushroom soup for her. She will have to replenish all the nutrients her body has lost as quickly as possible. A natural birth is much easier than a C-section, Sonia said before turning on her heels and getting busy with the preparations. Lucian continued to assure the children and did his best to answer all their questions about their soon-to-come siblings. Not long after, Madeline and Jonathan also arrived at the hospital. How long has she been in there, Lucian?" Madeline asked. Not long, just 2 minutes." After hearing Lucian's reply, Madeline hurriedly raced into the medical staff's changing room and changed into a sterile surgical gown. When she was done changing, she strode toward the delivery room. Then looking over her shoulder at the kids, she said, "I'm going in to take care of your mommy, kids. Don't worry. Everything is going to be fine." The children nodded and yelled, "Thank you, Aunt Madeline." Shortly after Madeline entered the room, the cries of 2 babies could be heard through the wall. Everyone's expression in the hallway froze briefly. Once it registered in their brains, joy filled their eyes. Finally, the babies are here. Please let Roxanne and the babies be safe and healthy," Sonia prayed under her breath. Jonathan turned to Lucian and congratulated him. Congratulations, Lucian, on getting another boy-girl twin." Lucian's smile widened. The children cheered happily. "Mommy gave birth. Our brother and sister are here. How awesome is that? Mommy's the best." Madeline rushed out of the delivery room and took off her face mask, revealing a happy smile. Both Roxanne and the twins are healthy. The twins are in good shape. I can see the healthy blush underneath their fair skin. They weigh around 2.75 kilograms each. That's a healthy weight. Congratulations." Roxanne only stayed in the hospital for 3 days before she returned to the manor. Compared to the first time delivering Archie, Benny, and Estella, she felt the second time was as though unloading goods. Her bulky body became lighter, and her endocrine secretion wasn't a mess anymore. After delivery, Sonia prepared all kinds of supplements for Roxanne to an overwhelming extent. Roxanne couldn't handle her mother-in-law's enthusiasm and asked her husband to talk to his mother about nutritional balance. Soon after that, she started on the path to regaining her figure. Naturally, the rest of her time was spent accompanying Seward and Noreen. It was hard-earned free time after she utilized her identity as a newborn mother. The reason was the twins were much too pampered. The entire Farwell family revolved around them. Every day, Lucian would carry them in each of his arms to bake under the sun to treat their jaundice. He would feed them baby formula at a fixed time each day and change their diapers. The process was enjoyable to him. He even took up the position as a nursing teacher and taught Archie, Benny, and Estella how to care for their younger siblings and their different cries. His guesses were quite accurate. After school, once Archie, Benny, and Estella arrived home, they would start to teach their younger siblings to speak and memorize poems, completely disregarding that the twins were mere babies. Sonia's sole duty was to bathe the babies. She had specific steps and routines for the process, including the water temperature, the brightness of the lighting, the the bathing routine, etc. Every bath time, she would hum nursery rhymes to get the babies to laugh. Once the babies laughed, her mood would brighten for the whole day. Sharing photos with her friends and showering praises on her newborn grandchildren had become her daily habit. Elias had it the worst. He had always been the uptight parent yet amicable grandparent, so he couldn't find a definitive role. Being a good grandfather was his dream, but no one was willing to give him the opportunity. At last, he took up the role of a bottle disinfector and milk formula maker. The twins grew up quickly. Their fair and chubby appearance gained crowds of onlookers every day. Their godmother, Madeline, was their most frequent visitor. She would take over Lucian's job every visit as though she wanted to get some practice in advance. Occasionally, Jonathan would drop by and take on his role as their godfather seriously. He would learn some baby-caring skills from Lucian with utmost patience and sincerity. Undeniably, the elders of the Queen and Lon families, including Lorraine, couldn't help but visit the twins. Sometimes, they couldn't seize the chance to carry the babies, or the twins would be asleep, so they would spend their time playing with Archie, Benny, and Estella instead. All 5 children inherited good genes. They were beautiful and adorable in their own way. They had high intelligence and exceptional talent. The elders were envious. In turn, they would pressure Jonathan and James. Not only did the 2 men receive a nagging, but they were also urged to have a baby of their own. Not long after, Jonathan and Madeline zealously discussed having a baby and started working overtime at night to land one. In contrast, James had a long face. He didn't even have a girlfriend. How was he going to have a baby out of the blue? However, anyone who paid attention would notice Electra had been trying to get closer to James as of late. Roxanne wasn't surprised in the least by the news. Instead, she would jokingly tease her husband to help the two so that Electra would put an end to her antics. The entire Farwell family lived every day in the symphony of laughter. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 6 months had passed. No one would believe that Roxanne managed to maintain her perfect curvy figure even after giving birth to 5 children. No matter what she wore, she looked like a lady in her early 20s. In fact, she was once mistaken for an undergraduate. Of course, she looked like that mostly because of her diet control and persistent workouts. Taking care of Seward and Noreen this time was a piece of cake. In just 6 months, the 2 babies had become fair and chubby. They were absolutely adorable. Seward was the only one among the other children who resembled Lucian the most. He had beautiful double eyelids and bright eyes, like a miniature version of Lucian. Sonia expressed her amazement every day, saying she was seeing the younger version of her son again. Meanwhile, Noreen's features were comparable to Estella's. They fit the beauty standards perfectly, and when she smiled, she looked like an angel. The 3 older children were busy taking care of their siblings every day. They taught the babies how to say a daddy, and a mommy, a crawl, and eat with their hands. Envious of Roxanne, Madeline would always stop by the manor and play with the children. She badly wanted to take a few of them away to spend some alone time with them. No one would believe that Roxanne managed to maintain her perfect curvy figure even after giving birth to 5 children. No matter what she wore, she looked like a lady in her early 20s. One day, Madeline and Jonathan arrived at the manor together with 2 sets of cute baby outfits she had washed personally. Upon seeing Seward and Noreen, Madeline quickly lifted them up and planted kisses on them. She could not wait to help them get changed into the new outfit. Jonathan warned, calm down. Let's turn up the heater first." Madeline nodded in response. It was then Roxanne slowly descended the stairs. Since she was used to seeing them in the manor, she simply greeted, "You're here." "Roxanne, come look. I bought 2 sets of clothes and shoes for your babies." Smiling, Roxanne went over to have a look. Sure enough, they were perfectly suitable for the babies. She praised her best friend for having great taste. You don't behave like a mother. Shouldn't you be worried about things like this?" Madeline rolled her eyes. Roxanne simply put on a teasing grin while turning to look at Jonathan. He quickly reminded Madeline, have you forgotten? Estella owns a kids' clothing brand. Ever since Seward and Noreen was born, Snuggly has been releasing many new products for them. Madeline could only sigh inwardly. To her, the industry chain of wealthy families was terrifying, so much so that they did not have to worry about anything. After getting the 2 babies changed, Madeline quickly took some pictures before chatting with Roxanne. It's true. I dreamt of a goddess last night. How I wish I can get pregnant with one, Madeline complained, blaming her womb for not doing a good job. She did not have a major family business to inherit. In fact, she really loved children. Roxanne took Madeline's arm and examined her pulse. A few seconds later, Roxanne's eyes lit up with joy. Looks like the goddess has given you what you wanted. Congratulations. You're pregnant. Stop joking around. How can there be such a coincidence? Madeline simply thought her best friend was just teasing her. However, Roxanne turned to Jonathan and nodded seriously. Delight instantly spread over Jonathan's face. Really? You're pregnant? That means I'm going to be a father soon. His gaze was filled with surprise, but the way he looked at Madeline overflowed with tenderness. Stunned, Madeline asked again, are you sure? Roxanne nodded firmly. You're really pregnant. I'm not teasing you. It's my turn to take care of you this time. Ever since Madeline was pregnant, Jonathan abandoned his business once again and became her full-time nanny. Lucian had absolutely no objections, while Roxanne was displeased. Lucian spent more time with the children every day than she did. In the future, they would look for him more instead of her. Roxanne needed to reconnect with them and rediscover her place in their hearts. She needed to put more time into taking care of Seward and Noreen. Without realizing it, Archie, Benny, and Estella had grown taller. Moreover, each of them was beginning to make achievements in their lives. Archie won first place in a national poetry competition and appeared on the country's most famous TV station program, becoming the famous genius child everyone recognized. Benny, on the other hand, led thousands of expert technicians to build a defense system when foreign hackers tried to attack the enterprise network of China's key domestic companies. In the end, the defense stopped everything. The government officials privately paid Benny a visit and awarded him a special medal. They told him to keep it a secret and that he could join the government's network security department when he was older. Estella was incredible, too. As branded kids' clothing swept over the entire country, Snuggly became more popular. Many local celebrities' children wore her designs, which served as free publicity. Even the organizer of 4K's Fashion Week sent her several invitations, but they were rejected by Lucian. Seward and Noreen were starting to learn how to walk. With the help of their older siblings, they picked it up fast. During Madeline's 10-month pregnancy, Roxanne helped out a great deal. In fact, Lorraine was not as experienced as Roxanne. After all, the latter had given birth to 5. The moment the baby's cries rang out, Jonathan, who had been waiting in the hospital corridor, was wild with joy. His son was born. Jonathan had decided to give his son the name Harper Queen, and his nickname would be Tappy. With more children entering the world, their lives became more lively. Jonathan and Madeline even planned to give birth to twins next year in order not to lose to Lucian and Roxanne. Meanwhile, Electra slowly entered a dreamlike state under James' hypnosis. It was what she asked for when she realized there were some fragmented memories in her mind that could not be pieced together. The most puzzling thing was that she remembered liking James since high school when all of a sudden, her feelings were transferred to Lucian. With the help of James' gentle voice, the scene from the past appeared in Electra's mind. Back then, she had invited James for a hike. She had prepared to confess her feelings to him that day. That was because her family had arranged for her to study abroad instead of at a local university. If she did not confess that day, she would never get the chance to do so. However, an accident happened that day. When she was taking a picture with James, she accidentally pushed him, causing him to fall from a rock that was in a high place. She rushed forward and pounced on him, feeling utterly guilty and remorseful. It turned out that James was caught among some vines, while she continued rolling down the mountain until she knocked her head against a rock. By the time she woke up, she heard Lucian calling out her name. At that moment, her mind was blank. All she remembered was Lucian. When she woke up from her hypnosis, her eyes were wet, and tears kept flowing down her cheeks as she stared fixedly at James. What's wrong? What do you remember?" James' gaze was filled with tenderness and concern. James, I need to ask you something. Why didn't you come looking for me when we fell from the mountain back then?" Electra asked him angrily while staring at him with resentment. James paused for a few seconds and scratched his head before finally recalling the incident. Only then did he smile and say, I was stuck at the upper half of the mountain, so I asked Lucian to rescue you first. You can't blame me for that. I couldn't save you." So, that's what happened. That was when Electra realized she had lost her memories after the fall. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she threw herself at James and hugged him tightly. Just like that, 10 years had flown by in the blink of an eye. 3 figures could be seen riding their bicycles on the road of Chenia's best educational institute, chatting and laughing at the same time. 2 of them were twin brothers. They had chiseled faces, sharp eyebrows, and eyes that sparkled like the stars in the night sky. The girl, on the other hand, had exquisite features and exuded an elegant aura. She looked like a fairy who did not belong to the real world. Their names, Archie, Benny, and Estella, were simple names, yet they were constantly brought up by parents in the country. 3 of them were the youngest students in the educational institute. Their appearances constantly attracted everyone's attention in the area. Discussions would even erupt around them. Not only were they praised for being good-looking, but they were also praised for their titles. At that point, Archie was known as the country's best ancient Chenian researcher. In fact, he was equipped with the ability to mentor students. Meanwhile, Benny had become the National Security Department's special advisor. However, that identity was a secret. Only a few people knew about it. To the public, he was a famous archaeologist. Estella's identity was even more impressive, for she had many titles in the fashion industry. A few years ago, she successfully held her fashion show in Polaire. After that, her clothing brand was released globally. Since then, many A-list celebrities fought to have her design their outfits at a high price. As they talked and laughed among themselves, they responded to the other students' greetings with a smile. When they were arriving at the institute entrance, they quickened their pace at the sight of their family's car. Roxanne, too, spotted the trio. She brought Seward and Noreen out of the car so they could wave at their older siblings. Archie, Benny, Essie, we're here. Coincidentally, it was Seward's and Noreen's 10-year-old birthday. They had come to pick up their older siblings for the celebration. A blissful smile formed on Roxanne's lips. The 5 children were her most precious treasure in life. Her face did not seem to have changed much over time. Rather, she looked more graceful and beautiful. Even her figure was the same as how it was 10 years ago. It made everyone around her jealous, including Madeline. Sitting in the driver's seat was Lucian. He slowly opened the door to reveal his gentle and mature gaze that was no longer hostile. Archie, Benny, and Estella parked their bicycles and quickly walked over to the car. While Lucian reached Roxanne's side, he subconsciously reached out to take her hand affectionately. Sensing that, Roxanne looked up and stared at him with the same gaze. Seward and Noreen sprinted to their older siblings. Archie and Benny were almost Lucian's height, while Estella's looks resembled Roxanne's when she was younger. The car was a customized 7-seater. It fit all 7 of them perfectly. Throughout the drive, the car was filled with joyous chatter. Daddy, Mommy, I have a big secret to tell you. You know how Archie and Benny have many admirers, right? Recently, I realized they're interested in the same girl. Estella suddenly revealed a piece of exciting news, which invoked warning looks from her older brothers. Oh, is that so? What's she like? I want to know what kind of girl can make both Archie and Benny fall for her. Roxanne simply cast the boys a calm gaze. Lucian, too, glanced over with curiosity written all over his face. Immediately, Archie's and Benny's faces flushed red.
No.
Don't listen to Essie spout nonsense. We just admire her, that's all, Archie explained frantically. At the same time, Benny quickly recollected himself and smiled, looking just like a younger version of Lucian. I like her. She's quite outstanding. I've told Archie about it, and we're competing fairly. Hearing that, Lucian and Roxanne exchanged happy glances.
It's fine.
Pursue her if you like her, said Lucian with a nod. When can you introduce her to me? A memory from 20 years ago suddenly came back to Roxanne. My history with Lucian started in school as well.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.